What happens when America's kindest talk show host becomes the one everyone wants to shut down? For years, Ellen DeGeneres told the world to be kind. She made people laugh, dance, and feel good every day. But soon, people started to see something else. Her guests didn't always look happy. Some looked nervous, some looked uncomfortable, and the smiles on her show started to fade. Something was clearly wrong. Why were so many stars suddenly trying to avoid her questions? Why did her interviews turn from fun to awkward? Celebrities like Mariah Carey, Taylor Swift, and Dakota Johnson stopped playing along. They began to stand their ground on live TV, and the audience could feel the tension. The same show that once made people laugh was now making people cringe. Fans started to wonder, was Ellen really as kind as she seemed? In the next few minutes, you'll see how Hollywood's biggest stars shut down Ellen's disrespectful moments, and how those short interviews changed her image forever. Because sometimes being kind on TV doesn't mean being kind in real life. For years, Ellen DeGeneres was one of the most loved TV hosts in America. She made people laugh, smile, and feel good every single day. Her talk show was a place where both stars and fans felt welcome. People called her the Queen of Daytime TV. Her famous line, "Be kind to one another," became her brand. It wasn't just a phrase, it became a movement. Millions believed in it. They saw Ellen as a person who cared, who made the world a little softer. For many celebrities, sitting on Ellen's couch felt like being in a safe space. They could relax, joke, and open up about their lives. It seemed like the one talk show where no one got hurt. But slowly, small signs started to appear. Jokes that didn't feel funny. Questions that went too far. Moments where guests looked trapped instead of comfortable. Behind that bright smile, there was something different. Something people were starting to notice. Fans began to ask themselves, was this kindness real or just part of the show? The laughter was still there, but the warmth started to fade. And soon, that friendly stage began to feel like a setup. But what happens when that safe space becomes a trap? Mariah Carey, one of the biggest music icons in the world, came to Ellen's show for what seemed like a normal interview. The crowd was excited, the lights were bright, and the mood felt fun. But behind the smiles, there was a sensitive topic in the air. Rumors were spreading that Mariah might be pregnant, but she hadn't said a word in public. Most hosts would have respected her privacy. Ellen didn't. Instead, she set up a trap, right in front of millions watching at home. During the interview, Ellen had a glass of champagne brought out on stage. Then she smiled and said, "Just take a sip. That'll prove you're not pregnant." It sounded like a joke, but it wasn't.
People are saying that that you're pregnant. There's rumors.
Don't discuss that.
All right. Well, you don't have to.
No,
answer.
that's okay. No, honestly,
you
how
don't
do
have to
I- how
answer
do
me.
I-
Let's just toast with champagne. Let's toast to you not being pregnant. If you're not pregnant, then we
Oh
should.
my goodness. I can't believe her.
Mariah froze. She tried to laugh it off, but you could see the discomfort in her face. The audience laughed, unsure what was really happening. Mariah had no safe way out, so she pretended to drink and moved on, trying to keep her dignity on live TV. Later, she admitted that moment made her feel trapped and hurt, especially since she was pregnant, and later suffered a miscarriage. Mariah was cornered on live TV. But what Ellen didn't know was how deep that moment would cut. Mariah Carey tried to stay calm on stage. She laughed awkwardly. She pretended to sip the champagne. She acted like it was all just a joke. But inside she was shaken. What the world didn't know then was that Mariah was actually pregnant at that very moment. And just weeks later, she suffered a miscarriage. That fun TV game turned into one of the most painful memories of her life. Ellen's little test wasn't just awkward, it was cruel. She had forced Mariah to face one of the most private parts of her life before she was ready. And it happened live, in front of millions of viewers. Imagine being pressured to share the most personal news of your life, while the whole world is watching and waiting for your reaction. There was no safe way to say no. There was no space to protect her feelings. The moment ended in laughter on TV, but it left scars behind the scenes. People started to realize that Ellen's funny moments sometimes came at the cost of someone else's pain. And sadly, Mariah wasn't the only one. In fact, one of the biggest pop stars in the world was about to face Ellen's cruelty in an even more public way. Taylor Swift was young, talented, and one of the most loved singers in the world. But she was also a constant target of gossip about her dating life. Every song she wrote, every person she spoke to, people turned it into a headline. So, when she went on Ellen's show, She thought it would be about her music, but it wasn't. Ellen had something else planned. She created a game right in front of the audience. Photos of men Taylor had supposedly dated started flashing on the screen. Ellen handed her a bell and told her to ring it whenever one of them was true. At first, Taylor tried to smile. She laughed nervously and said, "I don't want to do this." But Ellen kept pushing. She told her it was just fun. The crowd laughed, but Taylor wasn't laughing anymore. Her face changed. She looked uncomfortable and embarrassed. Finally, she said quietly, "This makes me feel so bad about myself." Yet Ellen didn't stop. She kept laughing, treating it like a joke.
I'm going to show pictures. Here's a bell, and you ring it when.
Oh my God.
All right? We'll show pictures.
I don't know if I'm going to do this.
Yeah, you will.
This is the one thing that I have. It's like the one shred of dignity that I have is I know that.
What do you mean one shred of dignity? You're filled with dignity.
But people go and make guesses about it, and the only thing that I have is like that one card.
The audience clapped, not realizing they were watching someone get humiliated on live TV. But Ellen, she just kept laughing. So what did Taylor do next? Taylor Swift was trying her best to stay calm. Each new photo flashed on the screen. Each time, Ellen told her to ring the bell. The crowd laughed louder with every picture, but Taylor's smile started to fade. She looked down, trying to protect what little privacy she had left. Then she said quietly, "This is the one shred of dignity I have." It was a clear plea to stop, but Ellen didn't stop. She kept the game going, smiling as if nothing was wrong. The audience laughed again, not realizing how uncomfortable Taylor looked. You could see her hands shaking slightly, her eyes trying to hold back emotion, and Ellen just kept joking, like it was all part of the fun. But it wasn't fun anymore. This wasn't kindness. It wasn't even comedy. It was public humiliation, dressed up as entertainment. Millions watched, not knowing how much it hurt. And Taylor, one of the biggest stars in the world, had no way to walk off that stage without being called dramatic. That moment stayed with her for years. But years later, another guest would walk onto that same stage. And this time, Ellen would be the one left speechless. Dakota Johnson walked onto Ellen's stage looking calm and confident. She greeted Ellen politely and sat down, ready for another normal talk show chat. But Ellen had her usual move ready. With a smile, she said, "How was your birthday party? I wasn't invited." It sounded playful, just another joke to get a laugh from the crowd. But this time, the mood shifted fast. Dakota didn't laugh. She didn't smile or try to play along. She looked Ellen straight in the eye and said, "Actually, no. That's not the truth, Ellen. You were invited."
Happy belated birthday. When was your birthday?
It was October 4th.
October 4th. How was the party? I wasn't invited.
Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen. You were invited. Last time I was on the show, last year, you gave me a bunch of about not inviting you, but I didn't even know you wanted to be invited.
Well, who doesn't want to be invited to a party?
Well, I didn't even know you liked me.
The crowd gasped. Ellen froze for a moment, clearly caught off guard. No one had ever talked back to her like that on her own show. You could feel the air in the room change instantly. Ellen tried to recover with another joke, but it didn't land. Dakota stayed calm, almost too calm, and continued explaining that Ellen was out of town and couldn't come. The tension was real. The audience didn't know whether to laugh or stay silent. For the first time, Ellen wasn't in control of the conversation. The host who made others uncomfortable was now the one squirming in her seat. The audience gasped. Ellen froze, but Dakota wasn't done yet. Dakota Johnson didn't raise her voice. She didn't lose her cool. She simply explained Ellen was invited, but she was out of town and chose not to come. The audience went silent. Ellen tried to backtrack, fumbling her words and forcing a laugh. She looked to her producer for help, but no one could fix the moment. The tension was heavy. You could almost feel the power shift. For the first time, Ellen wasn't the one in control. She wasn't leading the joke anymore. She was the punchline. Dakota stayed calm, confident, and completely honest. Every word she said hit harder because it was so simple and true. Ellen smiled nervously, trying to move on, but it was too late. The audience had already seen it. They had seen the real moment, the one where the kind host got caught lying on her own stage. And the internet noticed too. Clips of that scene spread across social media within hours. People replayed it again and again, shocked by how quickly Ellen's charm fell apart on live TV. We've all seen someone get caught in a lie, but never like this, never on their own show. This moment went viral instantly, but it also opened the floodgates because Dakota wasn't alone. By now, people were starting to notice a pattern. It wasn't just Mariah Carey or Taylor Swift or Dakota Johnson. There were others too, and their stories sounded all too familiar. Justin Bieber had been a guest many times, but every time he sat on that couch, Ellen brought up his past mistakes. She kept reminding him of things he was trying to move on from. He smiled politely, but you could see the frustration in his face. Then there was Hassan Minhaj. Ellen mispronounced his name over and over again, even after he corrected her. Instead of apologizing, she laughed it off. The audience laughed too, but Hassan looked uncomfortable. And who could forget Cher? When Ellen asked if she'd ever work with Madonna, Cher said no. Ellen tried to make it a joke, but Cher stood her ground. Not everything was for laughs. Even Wendy Williams had her tense moments, feeling pushed into awkward jokes she didn't want to play along with. One awkward interview? Maybe a mistake. Two, maybe a coincidence. But this many? This was a pattern. So the question everyone started asking was this: how did Ellen get away with it for so long? As more clips went viral, new stories began to surface. This time, they weren't from celebrities. They were from the people who worked behind the scenes. Former staff members started to speak out. They talked about a toxic workplace, unfair treatment, and even fear of losing their jobs if they spoke up. The cheerful image that Ellen had built for years was starting to crumble. What used to look like kindness was beginning to look like control. The famous line, "Be kind to one another," no longer sounded inspiring. To many, it started to feel like just another marketing slogan, not a real belief. Fans who had watched her for years began to re-watch old interviews with a new mindset. Moments they once found funny now looked mean and uncomfortable. They started seeing the small signs they had missed, the jokes that went too far, the smiles that looked forced, and the guests who clearly wanted the moment to end. Suddenly, those playful moments didn't seem so playful anymore. People weren't laughing. They were re-evaluating. And Ellen, the woman who told the world to be kind, was now facing her own silence. But here's the part that no one talks about. The real reason Ellen's downfall hit so hard. These weren't just a few awkward moments on TV. They were power plays. Ellen used her platform, her audience, and her likability to stay in control. She could turn any situation into a joke, no matter how uncomfortable it made someone else feel. For years, no one challenged her. People were too afraid to look disrespectful or ruin their image. But then came Mariah, Taylor, Dakota, and others who refused to play along. They didn't yell. They didn't fight. They just stood their ground, calmly and firmly. And in doing that, they changed everything. They showed the world that even in front of millions, you can say no to being disrespected. They reminded people that fame doesn't mean giving up your dignity. Slowly, the power shifted. Ellen wasn't the untouchable host anymore. She was the one being questioned, and her guests became the ones people started to admire for their courage. Because here's what Ellen didn't understand. Kindness isn't a brand, it's a choice. And she stopped choosing it a long time ago. Ellen DeGeneres built an empire on 2 words: be kind. But the truth, you can't sell kindness while practicing cruelty. You can't demand respect while disrespecting others. And you can't hide behind a smile when your actions say something else. For years, people thought the celebrities were lucky to be on her show. Turns out, Ellen was the lucky one. Lucky they didn't walk off sooner. What Mariah, Taylor, Dakota, and others did wasn't just self-defense. It was for everyone who's ever felt small. Real kindness doesn't need cameras. So what happens when America's kindest host gets shut down? The truth finally comes out. And maybe we all learn to stop confusing performance with character. Ellen's show may have ended, but the lessons from these moments will last forever. Respect isn't optional. Boundaries matter. And no amount of fame gives anyone the right to make others uncomfortable for entertainment. You just watch some of the bravest celebrity clapbacks in TV history. And the real reason they mattered. If this video opened your eyes, like, share, and subscribe for more stories Hollywood doesn't want you to remember. Now it's your turn. Do you think Ellen crossed the line, or were people just too sensitive? Share your honest thoughts below. Let's talk about it.